So today we're going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. We are now on to episode 37 of this series, and in the last episode we saw the Cold War finally begin, and we also saw the African Union split into two countries in a kind of proxy war and a civil war and a regional war. It was a whole mess, so if you haven't seen that yet, then sorry that I just spoiled you, but also go watch that video. And I do believe that that was really the only thing that happened in that video. It was a lot of discussion about nuclear weapons, which if we take a look at that map real quick, we will see that there are two nuclear powers in the world at this point, the Brown Team and the Old Empire, but that is going to be changing in today's video, hint hint, and also kind of not hint hint, just letting you know. So if you guys do enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated, as I'm going through college right now, and we all know how college can be. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into this scenario. So in the last video, like I said, the African Union officially split apart into two powers. We have, of course, the Mediterranean African country, and then we have the Western African country. These guys were losers, and the Old Empire bailed them out big time. We saw the Red Team get punished for what it did by the Old Empire. You know, they took a bunch of land from them and surrounded their capital. But we need to go ahead and go down south to southwestern Africa / Central Africa, because this place is doomed. They're not actually doomed, but they are in trouble because they currently have the currency that is the Mediterranean countries. And remember, these guys are going through a rebuild right now. Their currency kind of collapsed during the Civil War, and they were the 5th strongest country in the world. So their currency was very strong, and now it's not so strong, and these countries are feeling that. So what we have happening here is a series of wars over this. Countries need to go and get more resources because they don't have any resources left because they extinguished them all trying to cope with the currency collapse. So, you know, they might go try to steal any resources that any other countries have. And one particular country that's doing this is going to be the dark green one. They are going to be going after this red country here. Now, these countries are not very strong, and that's thanks to the fact that they are so new in the system. They're also not very populated, but they are still, you know, militarily capable, just on a way smaller scale. So these guys start to invade the red country, who is, I'm not gonna lie, they're on the brink of collapse. They're not very economically stable, obviously, none of these countries are, but politically, they're a complete mess. This was one of the countries that was kind of botched by the African Union. They didn't set it up very well, and that is thanks to the fact that they messed up the borders big time in terms of ethnicities and races and stuff like that. The southern half of this country is not the same as the northern half of this country. It's like two different groups of people mushed into one country, and it didn't work. But now the green team is invading them, and eventually this other group up here will surrender, and we can go ahead and take a look at a peace deal that this dark green country is going to draw up. So what we have here is the dark green country annexing this southern half, and you might be thinking, what about the northern half? Well, the northern half is actually going to be given over to this dark purple country here, and that's because these people up here are the same group of people over here. And overall, everyone is happy. Now what about the people down here? Are they the same as the people in the dark green country? No, they are not. These people down here are actually part of the same group as the people in this yellow country over here. So now there is rising tensions between these two because these guys are claiming that this group should have been given to them. So they're mad, and they got hands that they want to throw, but they may not throw those hands. We'll see. Now going up north to this light gray country here, these guys are cooked. They are not in a good spot. And you might be thinking, you know, everyone here is cooked, right? Sort of. Remember, the orange country and the green country, they kind of got rid of the currency of the Mediterranean one, and they adopted the currency of the West African one. And that can be a little bit rough because you can't exchange worthless currency for a new currency that just got created. It's a whole big jumbo of mess. So these guys are also unstable, but they're a little bit better off than these other guys. And here I'm going to introduce something new to the series. We have the introduction of economical alliances. The Western African country will create an economical alliance, one that focuses in on their currency and developing Western Africa, and of course the orange country will join it as well as the green one over here. So note, this is not a military alliance. This is a purely economical alliance between these three countries. If one of them were to get attacked by another one, the other two would not come to the aid of them because they are not obligated to do so. So with that in mind, now we kind of have to rework some of these other alliances because not all of them are military. Specifically, the Diamond Alliance is not military, it's an economical alliance, as is the Circle Alliance. Now the Circle one's a little bit weird. These guys, if they were to get attacked, if any of them were to get attacked, the other two would come to their aid because they're close like that, but they're not necessarily obligated to do so by the military alliance because it's not a military alliance, it's kind of like an interest alliance. So I'm going to be making them green here, even though technically they are sort of a military alliance, but also sort of not. And they're green because, you know, economy, money, same thing. But I'm going to be maintaining the yellow color for the military alliance, even though something like red would make more sense. So the square alliance is a military alliance, and the Triangle Alliance is a military alliance. They will stay yellow. Oh, these guys over here, I forgot about them. They are also in this economical alliance. All right, cool. So we have a new thing in the series. You know, we have economical alliances now, and a few of these might form across the world throughout the next couple of episodes. But as for this one, I'm going to leave it there. But back down to this gray country here, they are suffering, and there are a lot of issues that they don't know how to solve. Geographically, they're in a horrible spot. You know, you're kind of like in the sub-Saharan region / Saharan region. It's just, yeah, they're not in a great spot. So what they're going to do, So what they're going to do is they're going to start selling their land to their neighbors in order to get money. Now, the issue with this is that once again, they still use that Mediterranean currency. So they're going to be smart about it, and they're going to sell their land to countries that don't use that currency, aka countries that have, you know, a more valuable currency, such as the Western African currency. And are these guys in a position to really be acquiring land? Not really. So does this make too much sense in the grand scheme of things? No, not really, but I want to, you know, do something fun, so we're doing that. Realistically though, these guys are once again more economically better off than these other guys, so it's within their arsenal to do such a thing, and it's not like they're going to be buying a lot of land, just a bit, you know. So the orange country will buy this land. There's some ethnic relations and connections in this region, so it's kind of like a good thing, you know. Maybe acquiring this land will heed you more economical benefit than not, because purchasing it is going to obviously negatively affect your economy. But in the long term, those benefits might outweigh them. As for the lime green country, they're going to get a similar amount of land over here, which will look something like this. Okay, cool. So the gray team sold off some of their land. They now have a lot of currency, or a lot of money in this currency, and they're going to try to convert it into their own currency. They're going to try to form their own currency in order to really save their economy, and we'll check in with them later on. But now we need to shift our focus elsewhere because the Cold War just intensified by threefold. We already know that Russia and the old empire cut their relations. They no longer hold diplomatic relations, they are rivals, and they are starting to become enemies because of the nuclear program and the old empire not sharing their technology with Russia. We already know about all that stuff. I've covered it a lot. But remember, I said that a tripolar system is emerging. Right now, it's a bipolar system between Russia and the old empire. China is the second strongest country in the world, and these guys' sphere of influence kind of overlaps. So let's take a look at Russia's. Russia's looks something like this. It's pretty much just Eastern Europe / their puppet states, this blue state over here, and then a lot of Central Asia going into Eastern Asia. Why can I not get that right? I'm gonna have to put like sticky notes on my monitor, like East, West, because I'm stupid apparently. But now let's take a look at the old empire's sphere of influence. It's going to be a little crazy, I'm not going to lie. Okay, it actually isn't as crazy as it looks, but there's a little bit of some foreign stuff going on, like they have influence over Norway, of course, over in America. So this isn't showing everything, but it's like showing their domestic influence. So they have, of course, themselves a lot of the Balkan area of Europe, and a lot of Northern Africa going into the Horn of Africa, and of course their own puppet state. Now let's take a look at China's sphere of influence. Okay, this one's the crazy one. They have a lot of influence specifically over the Asia Pacific region, going all the way down into Australia. These guys, remember, they had a colony down here, so that's why they have influence all the way down here. But they also have the Philippine Islands, which kind of like benchmarks them into this area. And you might be thinking, you know, what's going on over here with Korea? Well, Korea has its own influence, which is something like that. You also might be wondering, why is this country split in half? Because it's equally influenced by both Korea and China. Now we can also, you know, like look at India. They're the fourth strongest in the world. Their influence looks something like that. But we're only focused on these three because they're the three strongest, and they are the three contenders in the Cold War. What do you also notice? They all overlap each other, except for the old empire in China, but really you could like kind of do that. So it's close, but they all kind of meet in this region right here. And I'm not saying that anything's going to happen here, but this is a very important spot. Also, India is a part of that, but remember, they are extremely neutral. So they just kind of, you know, are sitting back like, hey, we're just chilling, you know, trade with us. India is a very smart country. But back to the main point, China is the second strongest country in the world. Their influences are overlapping. And what are they thinking about the Cold War developing between Russia and the old empire? Well, they are pissed off, and rightfully so. They are one of the top campaigners for the, you know, anti-nuclear act. Them and their allies do not like the idea of nuclear obliteration because, I mean, who does, right? Other than these guys, apparently. And once the old empire started developing their own, they were kind of like, you know, distancing themselves from them. And now that Russia was kicked out of the square team, and now that Russia is also having its own nuclear program, they are just completely done with them. China was focused on going into space, you know, getting stuff into space. The space race, which it isn't really a race at all, it was kind of just like a whole world thing, but it no longer is a whole world thing. It's kind of getting back to an individual country thing. So we very well could see a space race. But China was all about that, and that kind of push to go into space has dropped tremendously because the old empire and Russia, two of the most technologically advanced countries in the world, are focused on building nukes. They don't care about space anymore. China is mad about that, and now China is going to go ahead and be like, yo, screw both of you. We are cutting diplomatic ties with both of you, and now we have the strongest country in the world, the second strongest country in the world, and the third strongest country in the world holding no diplomatic relations and having this rivalry and kind of almost hostile act towards each other. It's not completely hostile, but it's getting there. Remember, they were friendly not too long ago, so it's still kind of like neutral towards negative kind of relations, but it's getting worse. So now that China has officially entered the Cold War, we are in a tripolar system. The spheres of influences are all kind of overlapping and it's getting heated. But behind everyone's back and behind their own allies' back, China is going to do some crazy stuff behind closed doors. They send out spies to both Russia and the old empire, maybe the brown team as well. And what's significant about all three of these countries? Well, they all have nuclear programs. China is trying to develop their own nuclear bombs. That is completely against what they have publicly announced to the world. And they are doing so because in a Cold War, if the enemies have weapons that are stronger than you, you're cooked. Specifically nuclear weapons. If you're in this kind of rivalry slash race slash Cold War with other countries and they have nukes and you don't, you have to develop your own nukes in order to achieve that nuclear deterrence, which goes along with mutually assured destruction. So they start developing their own nukes behind closed doors. Nobody knows about this except for themselves. So now there are 4 countries in the world with nuclear programs: the old empire, Russia, the brown team, and now China. That is going to be very significant later on. So let's check in on Russia and how their nuclear program is going. Oh, Russia has developed its first nuclear weapon, ready to deploy whenever they want. There are now 3 nuclear powers in this world, and 2 of them are superpowers. The brown team isn't a superpower because they lack a lot since they got destroyed in the war. But the old empire and Russia are superpowers. China technically is a superpower in terms of everything but nuclear weapons. Once they get their first nuclear weapon, then they will officially be a superpower. They're kind of like on the side. They still are a superpower, but not technically. But once they get that nuclear weapon, they will be. All right, cool. So Russia has nuclear bombs. The old empire's like, shit. Okay, so now Russia has nuclear bombs. The old empire's like, dang, we're not going to produce anymore right now, but we're going to increase funding to the production of just in case. We don't know what Russia's doing and we don't know what the brown team's doing, but we suspect that they're still developing bombs and we suspect that they're going to add a few more to their arsenal. Additionally, the border between the old empire and Russia is going to be armed for the first time in many years. These two were both in the Square Alliance for a very long time with each other. Well, not a super long time, but they were both in the Square Alliance. They were allies. They didn't have their border, with military personnel on it. That has changed. There are now old Empyrean troops and Russian troops on this border. And they're not having a standoff, In fact, they're probably chill because they've known each other for a while. But over time, those troops are going to get replaced with newer ones. And those newer troops are going to be trained to not like the old empire and Russia, vice versa. So you can see how this is going to further escalate. All right, the old empire has acknowledged that Russia has nuclear weapons. They're a little bit worried about it, but they're going to kind of do what Russia did after they were kicked out of the Square Alliance. And they're going to try to flex their muscles a little bit. Now, in order to justify this, they're going to say that they are in need of more resources, which realistically, that's not a good justification for invading another country. There really is no justification for invading another country. But they say to the world, hey, we're going to go after this yellow country over here because we need more resources. We need new resources. It's not that they don't have resources and a plentiful amount of it, but they just kind of want more. Remember, these guys are fundamentally imperialist. They don't really care. They're going to do what they want to do. And by the way, this country is freaking huge. This is kind of like Rome in the modern day, which is insane to think about. But their borders, I'm not going to lie, they're getting too big to really maintain. The old empire is a very strong political country. They have little to no instability at all. And the only cases where they do get instability is when they claim new regions. For example, like this area over here that they just got, if they have any instability, it's over there. Elsewhere, like in the main core area, no instability. Everybody is very happy with the government and the government is very happy with everyone else. So they are able to maintain this much land, but continuing to go on and grow even more is always risky. Once again though, they're imperialists, they don't care. After having troops staged on their border for a few weeks, they finally go in. And it's very hard to see the capital in major cities, so let me just make this quick for you guys. They cut across almost immediately over and take the capital with ease. Remember, the old empire, strongest country in the world, their military is unmatched. So they see not a lot of issues with invading a weak country like this one. Now remember, this country has a lot of ops. It's been through a lot. This whole region has been through a lot and it's very hostile. But the old empire, they obviously don't care about that. They have one goal, and that goal is to take this country and its land. What they're going to do is they're basically just going to spearhead across the country and take their major cities. They can do this because one, they are the strongest country in the world, and 2, the yellow country is not doing a good job at defending themselves. So after taking all the major cities that I can see with my eyes, because I might be slightly colorblind, the yellow team will have to surrender because, not you, they will have to surrender because they can't fight anymore. And now we can take a look at what the old empire does in this peace treaty. Also, major cities, there's a lot more than what's being shown here, but it's very hard to keep up with, population growth in this series because I would have to go back and just sprinkle dots all around the area. It's hard to do. But these, I guess, are just their biggest cities. Anyway, peace treaty, let's look at that. All right, that took me like a minute to draw in, and you might be thinking, what is happening here? Well, they are going to relinquish these 3 provinces down here to their puppet state. Why are they doing that? Why don't they just take it for themselves? Well, once again, taking too much land can be problematic no matter how stable you are. But to me, it just makes sense for them to give some land to their puppet state, maybe to appease their government a little bit better, even though they technically control that government. Here's my seconds, whatever. And for the rest of this, well, full annexation. Another country is wiped off the map by the old empire, and now their influence is impeding into both the spheres of Russia and China. This will heighten tensions between the old empire and Russia and China a lot. They're kind of like, yo, get out of Central Asia, stop expanding so much. And the old empire is like, who are you to talk? But China, they really aren't as crazy as these two are in terms of land expansion. They're just kind of chilling and focusing on themselves, which is why they're the second strongest country in the world. But yeah, this makes them not so happy, and it's going to cause a ripple effect and chain reaction in Central Asia, which we'll get to here in a second. But first, let me erase this. And second, let's head over to South America. All right, South America, the most peaceful continent in the world at this point. Well, Oceania doesn't do anything. And there has been a few wars here, so never mind. The second most peaceful continent in the world. What's happening here? What are they doing? Well, the Irish country, when they kind of left their colonies alone, they created a little bit of an issue, as most colonial powers do when they leave their colonies. There's some overlapping claims here. Basically, the orange team over here is it's a country that is wanting ocean access. Big surprise there. But it's not that they want ocean access, it's that they claim ocean access. They pretty much claim this entire northern region over here, and the red team claims it as well. The issue is that the red team controls it. So what do they do about it? Well, they go to war about it, of course. The orange team will start its invasion of the area that it claims from the red team. The red team is caught off guard by this, and their reaction is very slow. The orange team does a very good job at taking this area, and in terms of ethnicities and who lives here, it's pretty much all the same. It's Irish people. They all descended from Ireland, so there's not much of diversity as there is in Africa. This is a little bit more complicated over here. There were multiple rulers over this region. As for this one, not really. So the orange team takes its claim from the red team, and they do so with very little resistance, as the red team is still mobilizing against them. And they're like, hey, we're done. Let's sit down to a peace deal, and we won this war. You're obviously not fighting back. Let's end it. The red team says no. And the red team's like, idiots. Why would they say something so mean and cruel like that? Well, that's because they're invading into their territory now. The red team's reaction was, like I said, very slow. However, it was not invisible, because now the red team is pushing back, and the red team is kicking the orange team's. Yeah, the red team is probably the strongest colony that the Irish country released. It might be stronger than the brown one, but the brown one will definitely give them a run for their money. It's very close between these two. But the red team invades up and takes back their entire territorial claim. And at this point, the orange team is like, can we just sort this out peacefully? I know that I attacked you first, but can you just please give us access to the ocean? And the red team's like, no. And then they're like, okay, fine, we surrender. Just stop invading us. And the red team's also like, no, you suck. You did something mean to us. The red team took it personally, and after they take their final major city, they're like, okay, fine, let's just work this out peacefully. After we took over a third of your country. The orange team is a little bit salty about this, but they kind of have to go along and surrender because they lost 2 of their major cities. In fact, those are their only 2 major cities outside of their capital. So let's take a look at what they work out in the peace deal. All right, that is simple enough. They take over this much land, and there are no provinces in South America because I haven't drawn them in yet, and I don't know if I ever will. Well, I will have to eventually, because it's kind of sucky, really? It kind of sucks that I haven't done it already. The provinces do add a lot more spice to the wars, especially when you see what provinces countries get, what provinces they target, and it's just more interesting. But yeah, they take this land, simple enough, and that ends the war. And the orange team is mad about it because now they're even further away from the ocean, and now they have no claim over this area, so they can't even justify anything against the red team ever again. And once again, not that you can really ever justify war. All right, South America, we're going to be going back here in the next episode probably, but let's go ahead and jump back over to Central Asia because, like I said, some important stuff is happening here, stuff that involves the Cold War and the dynamic of the world. Very important, obviously. And we're going to be looking at the alliance map. Obviously, the old empire's entrance into the Central Asian region is troubling for everyone here because the old empire is they're not going to hold back against anybody should they have to. Should they ever suddenly decide that they need more land and need more resources, no one's going to stop them from just invading these guys. And no one over here hates them more than the green team. The green team is the biggest op in history. They hate the old empire. If relations are bad between two countries, it can always be worse because the green team hates the old empire, and likewise, the old empire hates the green team because they hate them. This goes all the way back to the first episode of the series. It's that serious. It's like India and Pakistan on crack, except India is like 10 times more powerful, not even 10, like 100 times more powerful than Pakistan, just to kind of put it into perspective. So the green team is done with it. They're like, screw you guys, we're going to be creating an alliance. And the old empire's like, okay, cool. But it gets worse. These other countries all over here start to join it. Instead of just the green team in an alliance by itself like a loser, it's actually these three Central Asian countries. Jeez. Once again, the old empire is like, okay, like I could wipe you out all in a war within a matter of a month. And then Russia joins this alliance. They become the leader of this alliance. It was planned out by the green team. They were just the first country to publicly announce it. And all of a sudden, the Cold War went from just kind of like a rivalry to full-on enemyship. They're ops now. Russia and the old empire will now hold hostile relations with each other, constantly insulting each other in world relations, and the Cold War starts to heat up. Russia now has its own faction, just as the old empire has its own faction consisting of Norway and Iberia. Oh yeah, and America. But Russia's alliance is a lot more centered around close neighbors. As for the old empire, their furthest ally is all the way over here in America, and their closest one is all the way over in Iberia. Russia's allies are close. Well, that is going to do it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to show some support by leaving a like on it, subscribing to the channel if you're new, sharing it with that friend who isn't caught up with the series, and leaving a comment with your input. Even though these are all being pre-recorded, I can still look at the comments, I can write down your guys' ideas and implement them into the future. Once again, this series is heavily driven by your guys' input and suggestions, so don't be afraid to leave them. Even if you think it's the dumbest thing ever, it can likely get added. For example, when the Lime team was still around, I had a story where some sailors got lost at sea and ended up settling in South America in this country here. That country is now huge. Whoever suggested that, good job. You created a country in South America. I may not be ruining it in the next episode though. But hey, you did something. You did something big. This is a big country. So yeah, your input is always loved and wanted. So feel free to give it. Anyway, once again, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. And of course, thank you to all our super fans. This includes Pablo Sigma Cat, Sermonator, Georgie Badev, Deathstrider X, Arentine, Hammertoad45, Connor the Gamer, Poland Country Ball, Nevada Garbage Trucks, and DW Cool Dude. Once again, thank you guys.